Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. Mark Angus is the CEO and managing editor of Knowledge Executive, based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Knowledge Executive recently conducted research on behalf of the CX Blockchain Institute. Regular listeners will know that I spoke to Shelley Ryan last week about the launch of the CX Blockchain Institute, and as this new research was just published, I thought it would be the perfect time to call Mark and ask what it says. Okay, so Mark, last week I spoke to Shelley Ryan on this podcast about the CX Blockchain Institute and the launch of the Institute. I thought it would be a good idea to catch up with you because she mentioned that you were also involved. And I know that you just published a research paper that's associated with the use of CX and blockchain, and it's really research to support the launch. So maybe to start off, could you explain who you questioned in this research paper, what industries and what geographies were involved?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, absolutely. So it was really an interesting piece of research to put together. We conducted 120 interviews via outbound calling, mostly telephonic interviews during August this year. So it's very, very recent research that we put out, mostly with your C-level executives. So that included CIOs, contact center, customer service, and technology directors. And then we also conducted interviews with department heads across customer care, operations, and then also customer experience management. The respondents represented organizations in Australia, Canada, the UK, and the US. That was the main geographies that we conducted the interviews in, across 8 key verticals. So that included banking, insurance, healthcare, public sector, government, retail and e-commerce, supply chain and logistics, telecommunications, and then business process outsourcing. And what we found was that the majority, roughly about 60%, are responsible for organizations or contact centers with more than 10,000 employees and generate more than 5 billion in annual revenue, while about 28% of respondents represented organizations that generate between 1 to 5 billion in annual revenue.
Okay, so that's quite comprehensive findings then. What were the high-level results? I mean, if you were looking in general, how are you seeing blockchain being adopted in CX today based on this research?
Well, the report found that businesses in every vertical are at different stages of analysis and adoption, very much in their analysis and adoption phases in terms of how they're rolling blockchain out. There are clear patterns that emerge with regards to the tasks and applications blockchain can address across businesses. With large technology organizations, there's a lot of hype around at the moment. Large technology organizations espousing the benefits of blockchain. More and more organizations are sitting up and taking note of it. So we're definitely seeing adoption happening in the CX space. It is very much in the early stages, but people are definitely taking note of it and the uses and benefits that blockchain can have in that environment.
Okay, and I saw an actual figure, 83% of the executives questioned they can see real potential for the use of blockchain in their organization. Now, does that mean generally anywhere in the organization, or is that just focused on CX?
That was generally across their businesses. What we did do is we found out what the propensity for it was in the contact center space specifically. So the majority of respondents are still assessing where to apply blockchain in their business, or testing and optimizing blockchain solutions. But you do have early adopters. I think it was roughly about 33% of the respondents are implementing the technology in a few of their contact center operations. And then you've got another segment of around 20% that are deploying it in many contact center functions. So as mentioned, it's still very much in the early adoption phases, but there are organizations that are busy deploying it at the moment.
Okay, and it's interesting because, that 83% saying that they can see the potential is quite high because, I would be surprised if I could get 83% of executives to explain blockchain to me. So what are you seeing as the main driver that's exciting these executives, and what are the kind of roadblocks that they're having problems with?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think in terms of drivers, regulation is definitely driving adoption of blockchain because data is permanently recorded to the blockchain distributed network, and because those blocks cannot be altered in any way. It works very well for regulatory frameworks that govern best practices or promote standardization or require compliance. Blockchain could also speed up transaction speeds and accelerate transaction processing. So that's another big business driver at the moment. Our research indicates that early adopters primarily use blockchain for transactional functions, such as enabling secure digital peer-to-peer transactions and securing digital records. But blockchain's application as a catalyst for business model transformation is also rising. As an example, our research indicated that 30% of respondents are looking to blockchain to bridge organizational silos, which is a big pain point right now with many organizations. And then you asked about roadblocks. I think one of the major roadblocks is confusion around what blockchain is. Many companies are still getting to grips with the technology itself. They don't know what it can deliver and its true value and benefits. There's a lot of hype around it, and therefore also a lot of uncertainty as to whether it can deliver what the industry says it can deliver. So it's important to note, though, that there's a lot of hype around it, as I mentioned, and that blockchain is not a magic wand or a silver bullet. It does have specific real-world applications in various industries, but deploying it is a journey, not a once-off implementation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so if we were thinking about some of those specific applications that it is being used for, and within CX, I mean, most of the listeners to this podcast are focused on customer experience. So what are some of the solutions within CX that you've seen, based on the companies that you've talked to?
One of the key areas is the fact that it can empower contact center agents by providing relevant information in encrypted and secure ways to them at the agent desktop. And that can enable them to inform and also shape custom engagement in real time. Now, we've heard a lot about real time. A lot of people talk about real-time data, real-time information. But in this case, blockchain can provide a complete and up-to-date record of a client's engagement history and instantaneous access to relevant customer data and insights. And that can significantly reduce first call resolution time. So we're seeing that as a big element that contact centers are focusing on, the fact that they can reduce first call resolution times, as well as also simultaneously improving CX. And then we also saw from the research that operators are combining blockchain with artificial intelligence, machine learning, to create additional operational efficiencies that enhance customer experience and customer satisfaction. And they can do this by pushing more interactions onto automated digital platforms such as AI-enabled bots. And of course, it also creates opportunities for service delivery consistency across voice, web, email, and chat. So the omni-channel environment, which remains a major challenge for contact center operators.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Yeah, I mean, it seems like the ongoing omni-channel nightmare for a lot of companies.
Very much so.
You mentioned in the research that actually the introduction of blockchain could actually transform some entire industries. Things like government services, public sector services to citizens, and the banking industry as well. So what are some of the projects or examples that you found in these industrial areas that could be so transformational?
That was one of the parts of the research that I really enjoyed when we put the research together and I was analyzing some of the results that came back. It's interesting to see the adoption across different verticals, and it's different and it's very much customized to the various vertical industries. So, as an example, banks are looking to blockchain to help solve pain points such as bridging organization and technology silos. They are also using it to reduce the administrative load and complexity of regulatory compliance and meeting Know Your Customer or KYC regulations. In governments, such as the UK government, they're exploring blockchain to deliver better citizen-centric services, as well as secure voting systems for elections. Now, we know that that's a perennial problem with a lot of countries at the moment, is secure voting systems for elections. So they're looking at using blockchain to solve that pain point. The EU is also investigating blockchain's application in combating counterfeiting. The US Food and Drug Administration has partnered with IBM to explore how they can use it to securely share patient data to address the lack of transparency and security that exists in health data processing. In the insurance sector, blockchain is being used for risk liability for insurers, which provide better premiums for low-risk consumers with quick and accurate risk rating processes. And then in the retail industry, it's very interesting what's happening there. Organizations such as Walmart, they're really leveraging blockchain to track the freshness of their produce, of their goods. Alibaba, who we know very well, has adopted blockchain solutions for its subsidiaries to effectively track cross-border shipments and trigger payments based on smart contracts. And they're also using it to fight food fraud. But I think also one of the biggest areas that blockchain is having an impact is the consumer element. We know that consumers right now, that they're big right now on how, where, and when goods are manufactured. So the transparency factor plays a role in this. Blockchain delivers, and allows them to support companies that share their values of ethical or organic sourcing. So those are just some examples where it's being utilized.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and it's good to actually sort of hear of actual examples that are live today, and they're not just being sort of talked about by the analyst community. I mean, you mentioned that one of the biggest roadblocks is just the confusion. And I think that there's a lot of executive confusion because blockchain's always associated so much with Bitcoin and the kind of Wild West investment that we've heard about. So, I mean, as a final sort of summary, how would you summarize the opportunity? You know, how do people get past that confusion?
Yeah, very good question. You're right, absolutely. When everybody thinks of blockchain, they think of Bitcoin. But in fact, Bitcoin is a byproduct or it's built on blockchain technology. I think one has to look at blockchain as a technology enabler that can have the same significance and impact necessarily as other next generation technology as having on contact centers such as chatbots, web chat. There are some that believe that it's an evolutionary technology that will have the same sort of impact as social media and the internet has had on us. But I think the important thing to note is that to executives who are looking at it, is that it can be used quite effectively to bridge organizational and technology silos. That's one of the biggest benefits of blockchain. So you can break down those organizational silos between product houses and business units, as well as technology silos between CRM applications, as an example. And then it also enables, which really got us excited, enables secure customer history, data, and insights to be delivered to service personnel all in one go. So they have one view immediately of the customer's history, their data, their behavioral insights. And that gives them a lot of power to unlock a lot of insights at the agent desktop, as well as also enabling them to provide instantaneous services, and they don't have to go to other sources to research that information and to try and find it. And then, of course, we're all hearing about data protection security. That's a number one key factor, or number one challenge or element that a lot of organizations are concerned about. And blockchain can certainly help with that, because once that data is in a block, it cannot be tampered with, and it cannot be hacked in any way or tampered with. So, but the one thing I've got to say is that I think I alluded to this earlier on, is that it's not an overnight one-time technology deployment. It's not a magic wand or a silver bullet. It's a business journey. And so therefore, you've got to ensure that you have a proper strategy in place when you're looking at putting blockchain in place. You've got to make sure that you've got the right partners that you work with, and deploy a transformational strategy that can really help you with some of your customer experience hindrances and hurdles. I think as a parting thing, I'd like to say too that we play quite a lot in the BPO space, as you know, and we've got a number of a lot of organizations that are partners, BPO service providers, and what we can definitely see there is that it can be a service differentiator for them. It enables them to position themselves as CX blockchain thought leaders and gain advantage by being first movers and industry disruptors in the space.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast, because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm @Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.